Hello, one of my friends who had seen the first video on the difference between self-assessment and self-awareness called me up and asked me a question. Raja, you have mentioned that self-awareness is not equal to self-assessment. I understand this as a statement, but tell me, what is the difference between assessment and awareness? How does it take place in our life? So I smiled and I said, we are constantly assessing in the first place everything which is in the world of objective reality, everything that is in the world of form, is constantly subjected to assessments of various kinds. And the moment you say assessments, it's the swing between the two extreme possibilities: right and wrong, good and bad, best and worst, fast and slow. So, this fundamental principles of existence called duality, it makes us very, very highly prone to assessment. That's what I mean by the difference between self-assessment and self-awareness. Because in awareness, there is no judgment, there is only recognition. So he said, can you explain that a little more? I said, sure. We are constantly making assessment using our brain or our mind, as we normally call it. And that has become a very integral part of our living itself. This is part of the objective reality. And I think one principle from which we need to start to understand all this philosophy of existence is by looking at the duality factor of life. What does this duality factor of life mean? It simply means that it is in the existence of the opposites that the process of life goes on. Existence is founded on a fundamental principle of duality having to coexist. Right now, I'm breathing in, which is one process, and then I'm breathing out, that is the other process. This is a duality that has got to continue. Taking in food, which means I receive resources, and there is also throwing out the garbage. So there's a taking in, there's a taking out process. Just look around. There is the breaking of the dawn, the sunlight comes in the morning, and there is the darkness of the night. We are awake during the day. Practically every human being sleeps in the night, waking up and sleeping off. For every male species created, there is a female species existing. The truth is, existence is founded on a fundamental principle of duality having to coexist. Because if they don't coexist, there is probably non-possibility of anything being alive. If I breathe in and I don't breathe out, I get choked and I die. If there is no female matching a male in terms of any species, then further regeneration does not happen. All of us are born and we die, the duality. So he said, what has this got to do with the whole process of assessment? So I said, the interesting thing is, this duality, now I'm making a very careful statement, this duality which is a fundamental part of the existence that we can identify, because what we can identify is through our sensory organs and the mind put together, which means the things in the world of form, and the forms include visual forms, audible forms, things that I can smell, things that I can taste, things that I can touch. These are all my ways of identifying something. Something is hot, something is cold. Something is tall, something is short. Something is blasting my ears, something is very pleasant as a music. So the whole world of form is identified by me through my process of using the sensory organs. So he said, yeah, that's right. And that becomes predominantly our way of relating to the world in which we live. And what are the critical factors about which you are continuously making evaluation based on the usage of these senses? 3 factors. One is time. And time is very important for us because we've got a limited time in existence in the world of forms. We are born, that's the beginning, and we die. That's it. That's our premise. So the first one is time. The second one is quantity. We are born as a small baby and we die as an old person. So in the physical form, from that almost about 7-inch, 8-inch little baby, probably all of about 2 kilos or 2.5 kilos, to finally over the years becoming a 5 foot 8 inches man or a woman and becoming an old person, having celebrated 80 birthdays. There is this growing up part which is also physical, measurable. So there is a quantity, weight wise, height wise. And then of course, There are sub-measurements, blood pressure-wise, sugar control-wise, a whole lot of things. So there is a second one in terms of quantity. Then the third one, which is subjective a little bit, set against standards, that becomes quality. For example, if a child is delivered before, let us say, 8 months, then that's called as a premature baby. Measurable, acceptable standards of something. So there's a quality assessment. So we are into the third category: time, quantity, and quality. What is the weight of the baby? And terrible, kind of judgmental question. How fair is the baby? In some cultures, is the baby a good boy or a girl? And then within few weeks, is the baby all right? Is the baby crying too much? And the mother says, I'm so much disturbed by this baby. Disturbed by the baby is just being natural. From the time you're born, this evaluation starts. Then there is this question: is it growing adequately? Is it feeding adequately? Taking in enough quantity of milk, food? Is it starting to identify people? Constant measurement. And then, of course, the do's and don'ts that start the moment the baby is even able to move around a little bit. So we are also very quickly labeling the baby with assessment. Very mischievous. Oh my God, very unreasonable. Oh my God, gives a lot of trouble. A baby just about 4 months old gives a lot of trouble. So I said, my dear friend, that's how it starts. And by the time the child is 1 year old, already the questions. Is the child speaking okay? Is it saying hello to people? Is the baby ready enough to go to a nursery school? By the time you go to the nursery school, you take the children for admission, again assessment. Can you imagine assessment of the eligibility of children who are 2 years old, 2.5 years old? So this whole burden of assessment becomes an integral part of us. And I think we get inducted into assessment, we get really badgered with assessment, and we are cultivated in assessment. We take this message deep inside to almost believe that assessment is the way of life. And that's the biggest myth that we carry, and that is the biggest blindness that stops us from seeing the truth about us. And that seeing the truth about us is a process of recognition, which we need to do. And when we do the right recognition, then from self-assessment, we move into self-awareness. More of that in our part 3. All the best.